One of the most compelling and transformative years. Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the 2024 year ahead. What an awesome year ahead we have coming up. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about the intuitive, overarching themes and messages for the year ahead of 2024 for all signs. And then I'm going to break it down and go sign by sign. And this should all be laid out in convenient video chapters below. I hope you're all doing well and excited to think about one of the most climactic years in the current 12-year cycle that we're in, and one of the most empowering, resolving, capacity-rich years with all sorts of potential if we can just work with the energy right. So before we get into it, everyone, I'm so happy to announce that this video is sponsored by Let's Get Checked. I really love this service because it helps people to take healthcare into their own hands. Let's Get Checked is a worldwide leader in at-home health tests that puts you in control of your healthcare. It gives you the freedom to understand what is happening in your body without having to get permission from anyone. You don't have to leave your home, and you don't have to go to a lab to get your blood drawn. It's a very convenient service, and they offer all kinds of different health tests on their website, including thyroid health tests, other general wellness tests such as vitamin deficiencies, cholesterol tests. They also offer various hormone testing, and you guys can just go and check out what all they offer and see if any of that might be interesting for you in your own health journey, as I can tell you that 2024 is a year that deals a lot with health and getting our bodies strong enough to do what really matters in our lives. So why not take your healthcare into your own hands and try out Let's Get Checked? You can check out my link in the description box as well as the code to get 25% off your first order. I think these make great stocking stuffers as well, and it's a great way to both work on your health and support this channel. So check out that link below, and thank you again to Let's Get Checked for sponsoring this video. Okay, everyone, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the overview section of 2024. This message will resonate for the collective. This is meant to not be based on a sign by sign. I will first just talk about the intuitive messages, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the overarching astrology, and then we'll get into the sign by sign. So overview for the year 2024, specifically the calendar year. January to January, but in a way it kind of will also resonate for the March 2024 to March 2025 timeline as well, because that is the astrological change and cycle. But this year I do feel that it feels like more of a shift in January, even than usual. So especially by like mid to late January, already we're going to be feeling a very different and new energy. Of course, we're moving towards the Wood Dragon year in 2024 from the Water Rabbit year in 2023. So things are about to really take a different level. Okay, we're about to gain a different lens of insight. Things are going to get much less micro. You know, it's like a rabbit is a ground-based animal, and things are going to really take a higher plane as dragon is an animal of flight, of the sky, okay? So that is going to kind of be what's happening in this year. Things are getting off the ground, okay? Things are, you know, ideas that we've had, concepts that we've been moving, ideas, notes, insights, things that compel us, motivations, inspirations are going to go from the ground, from inside, and they're going to start moving to the external plane. It feels like a launching pad for a lot of people in 2024. And it also feels that people aren't just accepting things that aren't connected to their motivation and inspiration. So there's a lot of rejection coming in the year of 2024. There's a lot of splitting, okay? There's a lot of compromise lack, okay? As people aren't willing to accept certain compromises or certain acceptation that has them stuck on the ground or stuck in a state of feeling like their potential is not being permitted. So it's kind of like an unleashing feeling in 2024. It's a feeling of like, I've waited for so long to have a different kind of resolution. I've waited and I've just knocked my smartphone off the table. So maybe a lot of us are getting away from being addicted to the screens. A lot of us are maybe feeling like our time and our energy is being sucked up into things which are not significant, like another person's social media content, or perhaps just doom scrolling. Okay, I'm seeing a major increase of doom scrolling, but people who are really smart in 2024 are going to stop it, and they're going to actually start reaching within and seeing inspiration inside and bringing that off the ground. So there's an increase in, this is tough. There's an increase in the wealth gap in 2024 as well. And I mean, that doesn't probably take an astrologer or a psychic to tell you. But because of this, because some people are just really adamant on wasting their own time, some people are tied into addiction so hardcore during this time. Some people are not being productive with their timelines. And because of that, there's a downward trend in economic viability for a lot of people because of time wasting, and a major upward trend for people who really put their mind to productivity. Now, this is not to say, of course, that productivity is the only thing that matters in life, because even people who aren't tied into some type of economic force, if they're just focusing their mind on what matters in their life, if they're just doing what's significant to them and kind of getting away from the addictive cyber culture, they're going to also shoot up. But then other people are going to shoot downward. So there's going to be a growing gap. There's going to be more of a, this depends on geography as well. It depends on where we are in the world. I know that a lot of this audience is in the United States, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom. But I have audience from a lot of other areas as well. I feel that 2024, in any of those types of economies, in any of those types of cultures, they're going to be faced with a major hard choice, which is like reversion to feudalism, or also reinventing the current, I suppose, capitalistic trends. So you can check out my video, Global Dynamics, for the last chapter of 2023, where I talk a little bit more about economy. But 2024 is going to basically thrust us into this ultimatum of like, what type of evolution pattern do we want to have at a collective level? Do we want to keep evolving, or do we want to devolve? So the question of evolution versus devolution is very much front and center in the year cycle of 2024. And any choices you're making in your own life could be contributing to that ultimatum. So it's kind of important to take stock, like every action that I'm taking, every industry, every business, every job, every location even that I'm building up, which side of that evolution versus devolution does this larger force indicate? And it's very negativistic, okay, for a lot of people, meaning that there's more of a focus on centralization and less of a focus on natural outcomes in a lot of cases. So there's I know a minority of people who are very nature focused and very entwined in the natural cycles. But those natural cycles also coming out of 2023 are a bit downward. So there was a downward force that really came in 2023, and it put pressure on the current systems at hand. If you guys remember, I was talking in 2023, and you can check out that year ahead video too if you want to do some reflection on the 2023 year cycle. I'll link that in my Global Dynamics video below, and other relevant videos. So I've made a video on Saturn in Pisces as well as Pluto in Aquarius. Those should probably be down there as well. Anyway, if you guys remember, I was talking about the downward trend and the reduction that was happening geocosmically, whereby there was a perceived decrease in abundance. And what happened, though, was that we started to think more about the central core of our actions and our activities. One of the symbols that was coming up for that was during a time of drought, a river will maybe recede on the surface, but that doesn't speak for the deep hidden springs that are feeding it, which are not as controlled by the external weather. So measuring coming into 2024, the degree to which you've cultivated resources in your life or energy lines that have that sort of infinite core will be a major qualifier for how 2024 goes. Because 2024, for most people, we're not going to speak totalistically. For most people, 2024 takes a lot of something. There's something, and I can't quite solidly say what this is yet. This could be like an inflationary surge where it costs way more to do simple things. And then I do see quite prudent people maybe moving in with like friends or family, or there's a way to like bypass certain expenses, which is going to be a big part of 2024 and was in 2023 as well. But that also then creates a lot of new dynamics, like how do we get along with people in our lives, and perhaps less of a feeling of independence for like a future goal, which for some people is feeling quite overbearing. Anyway, to get back into the important message, something is expensive in 2024. Maybe it's new funding bills at governmental levels. Maybe it is also people having put something off for a really long time, like just not buying that really needed new car for years and years, but now it just has to happen. Not doing renovations for years and years and years, and because of deterioration, it like has to happen, or a new house has to be bought. It's Wood Dragon in 2024, which is about infrastructure. And typically, I'll make a video about this once the Chinese New Year changes. Typically, Dragon Year is a very kind of like romantic storytelling, like high flying, obviously, less grounded energy. It usually denotes rulership. It denotes mastery. It denotes climaxes as well in most people's stories. But being that it's in the wood element this year, it kind of tones it down a little bit, which I think is actually a blessing, because I wouldn't feel great about how desperate things have felt over these last few years with like global conflicts, with just a lot of really difficult to solve issues. It would feel a little bit insane to have like this high flying dragon energy on top of all of that. And that would feel, and is still nonetheless going to feel a little bit like overbearing, oppressive, and just like also speculative in nature. There's a speculation to the dragon archetype and to the 2024 year cycle. But because it's wood, it pulls it down and it grounds it down, and it might not be as obvious or as much of a shooting star, like some of the decisions that are making. So maybe things are happening more at a ground level. Maybe it's foundational. Maybe it's structural. Maybe there is a more coherent way that a lot of investments are happening, or more of a focus on structures. And at a smaller level, I'm seeing that people have to think about their utility as well. So like how efficiently certain things move. There might need to be major investments in utility, communication, transportation, also, just walls, structures, add-ons to buildings. Something about the energy of houses as well is actually going to maybe have innovation during 2024, but I'm also seeing energy surpluses as well, and that's going to lead to like lower energy prices for the most part. That's definitely coming out of 2023 the case. So there's going to be perhaps overdone production of energy. That's also the thing about this kind of macro energy, this kind of geocosmic energy, is that because of how much it wants to push and be seen and shoot across the sky and be like visible and seen and validated, it causes overproduction as well. So this is like overprinting of money, like a major surplus of money. This is like over energy production. And all of this brings the inherent value down, right? If you think of economics like the supply and demand curve. So the supply in most industries is going to increase. So more saturated social media content, more, it's feeling like despite this slightly changing right around the time this video is going up in December, there's a slight inversion and a slight reduction that we're seeing, which would make sense. I nonetheless feel that it's already kind of done. So like all of the injection of liquidity over the last decade is very much a longer running momentum, for example, than higher interest rates. So that's still going to overpower the long-running macros. And I think that a lot of people are just going to click that at this point in time in 2024. And a lot of producers, a lot of creators, a lot of decision makers are still going to be kind of like working in a momentum that is very inflated, despite what could be being released as reports or certain changes that have actually happened. It's like the long-term momentum really speaks for a lot. So how to work with this kind of dynamic most intelligently? Well, certainly it depends on the person. It depends on where you live. It depends on your needs and many individual aspects. But whatever you can do to curb any type of hyperproduction in your own life, working too many hours, especially doing things that are not really moving the needle, but are like a long-running momentum. So a big part of the 2024 year cycle is realizing what doesn't contribute, like what is being done, but is not moving the needle. As technologies advance or evolve, certain workflows and certain trends about like what is, a sort of modern or powerful workflow or technology, that could be over. So you'll start seeing people being antiquated in 2024 as well. Like people still using traditional websites. I don't know, people still, and I'm talking like what used to not feel antiquated. So people still like, not using certain financial tools. Some people doing things in what we will see within the next few years as like the pre-2024 way. Okay. So I'm definitely seeing a lot of technological innovation or just norms that kind of make the current face of tech and media change a bit. It's more what it's like. It's not even actually that much new innovation as it is almost like a facelift or a different way that the current status quo is going to show itself. And it's going to be like kind of strict as well. Also, I'm seeing like really strict norms. It's not even as much like strict laws as it is strict norms, but it could be both. There's kind of like a bearing down and very subtle ways that we act or very subtle expressions that we exude as people will determine a lot about our placement and about the people around us as well. For those of you who are artists, for those of you who enjoy literature or storytelling or even music, anything that evokes feelings, sentiments, this is going to be great for 2024. I'm seeing this being a huge area of hope and a huge area of enjoyment. There's a kind of like mysterious energy coming in this year, which we haven't felt, I'm serious guys, since like before the 2010s. You might have felt this coming up in like the end of 2023 as well, but it's kind of like a very riveting, intriguing energy. And a lot of us are going to actually, if we're doing well, we're going to start getting that life magic back about our experience. We're going to start getting back a certain intrigue or a certain like curiosity coming back in 2024, which is very hopeful to me. And it's something that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. But I've been feeling this kind of start to brew at the end of 2023, where it's like, I actually am curious to learn more. It's going to be a good year to start learning new things and to start like new hobbies, new projects, starting to solve things that you don't understand in your life. It's also great, right? We have Saturn in Pisces the entire year. We have Neptune in late Pisces. This is our first full year having them both in that sign without like a retrograde back on a cusp or anything. So this is going to bring a very kind of like romantic, mysterious, very also like, do I say dark? It's not like a dark vibe, but that's why I'm using the word like mysterious. There's a feeling of like, I want to understand more about that. There's a, for some people, a flirtation with mystery or wanting to also be in areas they've never experienced before. It's an interesting year for travel for some people, but I could also see things like religious studies, history studies, understanding something you don't know about humanity, understanding something that you don't know, like astrology, right? Very, very good for esoterics or learning about the tarot or astrology or also philosophy, okay? Like different people's conjecture, different people's opinions about the way that life works. This feels like a great area of expansion for people who have the time and focus to do that, who aren't doom scrolling social media apps and wasting all of their time. Okay. A big part of 2024, something that I have written down here to offset this, is also saying no to nightmares. Big important thing there. Having Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, it can be like, you can really sense it, like this situation can't end well. Okay, I've started a relationship with somebody, and because of where they're at and where I'm at and like the previous history, it does not take a genius to understand that that can't end well. I'm going to say no to that now. Okay, that's very important in this like actually next 3-year cycle with the entire Saturn in Pisces. I also have written down canceling out oppression and distortion, recognizing destructive people and habits, puzzle solving. So the key is not about these situations themselves. It's not about realizing, okay, this is a dark situation. This is like a horrific life experience, or like this news headline, or these things going on are terrible. That realization is obvious. The real key to this energy line where we're kind of facing darkness or we're facing difficulty or fear is like realizing it in that moment and kind of like rejecting the core of what that is. So it's like as you start to feel like maybe a flirtation or an attraction to somebody, I don't know, say to someone that you know the story can't end well, like you're, I don't know, there's so many different potentials. The real power is in being able to exert self-control in that situation and not just like yield to what is clearly a downward force facing you at an energetic level. Another component of the 2024 year cycle is working with ancient systems, working with something that's not so modern or fresh feeling. The mythology of dragon, right? Of course, it's not a creature, for example, like rabbit that we see at least as often or have a lot of validation exists. So there's a feeling of ancient forces, things that are not visible, things that have a mythological, again, storytelling kind of component. There's a feeling also of timing as well. It's like the timing to be in the place that the dragon is not perhaps obvious, or there's a mystery component to that because the dragon is not just visible to anybody. So that also kind of makes me think of reptilian consciousness, or it makes me think of that type of thing, as well as we'll also move towards snake year as well right after this year. So we have a little 2-year situation here in 2024 and 2025, dragon to snake. And it's also going to be a wood snake as well. A lot of skin shedding going on. Okay, a lot of shedding of preconceived notions. People also changing political ideas, people changing locations, people changing their own narratives, their own stories. And it's really like a sort of complete transformation over this 2-year cycle. But the 2024 part of it is more grand, and the 2025 part of it is more, generally that's more of, I think, where a shedding would happen, or where an actual like process of reinvention for a lot of people may start up. So because that's happening, it also is an important time for safety. It's an important period of time for not having opposition too much in your life, conflicts, anger. There's a vengeful kind of energy, obviously, with such a kind of like reptilian energy coming up for these 2 years here. There's a feeling also of like a poison or power as well. As of course, snakes are poisonous and dragons can like breathe fire, right? So there's, you have to like also not be prodding too much in these years. I feel that it's a time of important self-control, as it can also be a time of traps, or it can be a time of like, okay, we need this person to show that they prod, so how can we provoke them? Like, you have to watch out for provocations. It's a very important time for strategy, and of course we're seeing that at a global level with more military conflicts as well. So there's a lot of like strategic provocation. There's a lot of strategic just focus at all times of all days happening over these next 2 years. So that's important to keep in mind here, is we don't want to be too reckless. We don't want to be too out of mind or out of body, which would also be indicated with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. A lot of drunk people, a lot of people distracted by social media, a lot of people enveloped or consumed by something which kind of decreases their strategic competence or their capacity in general. So 2024, I really think the most powerful thing for it is honing that 2023 reduction energy and making sure that you're maybe scheduling yourself or having a powerful routines in 2024. So good, so good. So good to have powerful routines that you know, okay, this can't fail. This is strategically viable no matter what. Even if I don't have like all the answers, even if I don't know everything, obviously, it typically is a good idea to wake up at this time and go to bed at this time. It's a good idea to work those hours. It's a good idea to study those hours. It's a good idea to exercise then. That can't fail me. Like keep it simple. In the Global Dynamics video, I was talking about basic structures, basic functions, basic systems as a way to not get distracted or overwhelmed by things that are too complicated. So that's very important for 2024. Also, I have written down crowning flare and legitimization. So there's something also of establishing legitimacy that's important in 2024. There could be new nation states coming up during this time. There could also be rogue states as well, or when I say states, I mean like countries or territories that are vying for legitimacy in a strategic way. So it's going to really change up the global board when it comes to what we used to think were alliances or what we used to think were not. There's a lot of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend stuff going on. There's a lot of also people just totally won't compromise, like won't even entertain the idea of talks or diplomacy, for example. And that will lead to at least more of a focus on strategy and a lot of sort of like pointy, sort of angry energy as well. Okay, I have written down cyber deterioration, AI. Okay, so I'm not going to make too much of a comment on this kind of thing because it's just something that I need to research and educate myself more on. But I do feel that there's going to be deterioration. I think that a lot of people will quit social media careers. I will say that 2023 has been very hard and has been a major decline for most people financially on social media platforms. So I think that things are going to get less saturated, but that saturation isn't going to be replaced by AI. So it's not going to be really that much less saturated for the consumer. But you're going to have a decrease in independent individual creators providing things for free. Okay, a big decrease, which maybe that's right. I think that that's causing a lot of people to waste time at a more macro level. But I would definitely recommend if you have creators that you support, or if you have creators that you enjoy watching, for example, their free YouTube videos and all of the time, money, and energy that the creator is having to put into that, to give that to thousands and thousands and thousands of people for free, it might be important to go to their Patreon page and give a vote that you still want them in that space and not just AI mimicking them. Okay, that's very important. And I understand money's tied. I have a Patreon page too, and also the join button here on YouTube. But yeah, as it relates to intellectual property, independent creators, that's going to be a big focus in 2024 too. And there's going to be a lot of quitting. There's going to be a lot also of replication, meaning that people's content may be, swiped by AI and replicated. And there's going to be a lot of questions, and I think maybe legislative action that has to happen, maybe by like 2030 or 2035 or something, regarding AI disconnecting people's intellectual property. So yeah, that's actually giving, I think it's probably because I am a social media creator, so that gives me a lot of emotions and makes me feel a certain way. But I'm seeing social media creators' incomes depleting a little bit unless they're very, very savvy and very, very active and constantly trying to like sell or advertise all the time at all times. Even then it's going to probably decrease a little bit. But yeah, if you and you can kind of apply this to a lot of things in your life, like voting with your wallet, right? Keep an eye on things that you feel are free in your life and ask yourself, do I think that that's really free? No. And if I actually want that, I need to support that. and at least understand that if I don't want that, so basically like not supporting someone who is like entertaining you or providing you a lot of quote unquote free things, to not actually come to support that is in a realistic way just saying, I'm not interested in this actually, in which case, why are you there? Why are you wasting your time on it? So I think that a lot of people, it's like, I think this is like an inherent flaw in the system right now, is it's like people do care and like people don't have extra cash. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, if you're not willing to pay for something, but you're willing to spend a lot of time on it, what does that say? What does that say about a certain consumer culture? What does that say about also expectations for other people to work for free? Isn't working for free kind of like really apropos in this society? Isn't there a lot of like historical things about people, working uncompensated that are very extremely taboo, and not just taboo, but exploitative. So there's something about that, and I just think, like, for example, for me as a creator, I'm going to definitely be supporting people that I am integrating into my life, day to day. Like if their content is helping me, they're getting subscriptions. Okay. And it's just you're going to see a big change in that in 2024. Like people won't do it for free. They're just going to quit. They're going to go. It's going to be replaced by AI. It's not going to be special anymore. And then that's going to plummet a lot of the social media space unless... and then there are going to be like a few remaining people left who become really powerful and basically overtake that previous market share unless the AI has it. Okay, so I don't know. It's not against AI. I think that AI is a very powerful thing that can be very helpful in certain ways, but it's just important to know that there's a shift like that happening right now where you will see certain real people no longer in that space, and instead it'll be like a different consciousness that's not human providing that for you. So it's maybe something for us to think about how much we want to have like social media in our lives and how we support social media creators. That's a very actually political issue as well coming up in 2024. So just keep it in mind. And what I have that labeled under is cyber deterioration. That's a big theme because as less real people feel valued in that space and leave, it deteriorates the actual autonomy and the actual quality of what's there. And then we're going to see that at a structural level too, right? With building structures. That's part of this anaretic Pluto in Capricorn that we have at quite a few times this year. Of course, we'll have Pluto moving into Aquarius January 20th, 2024, but it will retrograde back into the 29th degree of Capricorn in September of 2024. So we're not going to be out of the woods for the rest of that year with the 29 Capricorn Pluto. It won't be until 2025 that we get our first full year of Pluto being totally done in the sign of Capricorn. Also in 2024, something that I've written down as a very important thing to consider and focus on, what doesn't have to be anymore? I'm seeing a lot of people almost like robotically recreating things that they don't have to do anymore. It's like they've evolved, they've overcome it, probably since the 2022 year cycle. Have overcome it, but there's just like a muscle memory that is working in shadow, and we're going to be called in 2024 to try to overcome that a little bit and to start to generate new muscle memories. So it's great to take on a new field of study. It's great to try maybe a sport or something that you've never done before. Getting back in the gym if you've kind of been stagnant for a while. Anything that supports on a physical level this construction of new muscle memory, which will bring into balance the shadow muscle memory. Okay, that's a very important component of 2024. And yes, there is a major focus on resources. For a lot of people, they're going to start thinking that their resources equal their power. So this is beyond money. This is like having like real things like structures, buildings, having, I don't know, gardens or some kind of produce or yield, having, water sources, anything that's like actual real material earth stuff with the wood dragon year is going to start to be how people view power. So yes, that means that all that money in that bank account is Not, of course, insignificant, right? Makes a lot of differences for a lot of people. But it's going to start to feel less romantic and compelling. And it's like, what's my real life? Like, what's my tangible, real, material situation? And what can the purchasing power of what I have actually do to change or empower that? So it's very much a case of inflation and a different kind of transformative look that people are going to start taking at their resources. And I definitely see people being forced to get more resourceful. So rather than just paying full price for things, I'm seeing more people using eBay more. Maybe there's like a comeback of eBay or something, or just community level bartering or community level buying and selling. Also people taking lower prices for things. At least for a part of 2024, there was an interesting energy that came in around November 2023, which I would say lasts until about April of 2024. Maybe until like September, but it's like this feeling of like, I just want this off my plate. I'll take whatever you can give me. There's kind of like a desperation to get things away from ourselves here. So there's a chance and an opportunity there for people who are wanting to acquire, but you have to be scrupulous with it at the same time. Because I'm also seeing people winding up with things that they didn't need to. But the main idea of that is that it's like different economies starting to form up, or different systems, like secondhand markets, secondhand work, putting teams together oneself rather than like hiring contractors, for example, working together with like the family and, hammering nails oneself rather than paying someone $50,000 to hammer nails, stuff like that is going to be a big part of 2024, which is resourcefulness. And the resourceful people will really get ahead, but also you don't want to accidentally bruise your finger with the hammer either. There's going to be a lot of that happening where people aren't accustomed to doing it. So they're like maybe making mistakes. So DIY culture definitely still in shadow, but a big part of also gaining power in the 2024 year. And finally, before we start the sign to sign, I have written here at the very bottom of my outline, restoring light. Okay, is very important this year. So recharging, not doing things you don't want to do, not feeling like you're exploiting yourself, not feeling like you're doing something that doesn't yield for you in the future. So that restores light, that restores health, that restores who we are. Okay, so that's going to be the most important thing above all of this year. And that could be quite actually a few year cycle for some people who've gotten really exhausted or drained. Okay, let's get into the sign by sign for 2024. Okay, of course, we have the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, coming in first. So let's talk about you, Aries, for 2024. Okay, so night has fallen in a way for you, and there is less visibility with some of the goals and objectives that you're facing. I think that it's really interesting the way that Mars is moving this year. We're going to have Mars conjoining all of the outer planets at some point in time throughout the year. So there's this feeling of you and your energy, right, being ruled by Mars, really facing or tackling certain generational issues as you will go through times of this year where you're connecting to all of the main macro forces. So, for example, there's going to be a really strong Mars-Pluto conjunction on February 13th in the sign of Aquarius. So there's going to be this starting point in the year of 2024 that shows you really transforming something in your life that could not continue any longer. And I think that that's going to be really compelling to get off on the right foot with. So kind of like taking stock in the very beginning of 2024. What am I wanting to change? What am I not happy with anymore? It's also notable this year, of course, we have the North Node in your sign for the entire year. The nodal axis is with you. Your ruling planet is conjoining each of the outer planets this year. It's a very Aries year. And the main thing that I'm feeling about Aries is really conquering any kind of overwhelm, okay, that you have in your life. Like if you're coming out of 2023 facing any kind of burnout, if you have things that are really overwhelming you, I feel that you may have to par down and you may have to reassess some of the value in your life. Like, for example, if you have like a job that's too demanding and you have like all of these things bearing down on you, or you have like all these expectations, Yeah, you may have to enter 2024 willing to pare this down or willing to get more precise with what you're doing. It feels quantity over quality has to be rethought because you guys are having to be very versatile this year. You're having to be really prepared to look at bigger, more macro issues. Again, as your ruling planet hits all the outer planets. So it's just not a very great time for being bogged down with busy work. It's not a very great year for you to also be all over the place in the mind. It feels like you have to be very purposeful, very resolved. And I feel that reconciliation is also a key concept coming up for you in 2024. You could have people this year realizing the power that you have or realizing the purpose behind your actions. Whenever the North Node is in your sign, it can make people have a certain magnetism towards you, or it's also a powerful year for you guys to be selected, okay, to be appointed, to be approved for something. Again, when the North Node is in your sign, it's a great time for expansion. So if there's something you've been needing to apply for, if there's something you've been needing to really activate through your ruling planet, Mars, meaning that if there's anything that you need to pioneer, if there's anything that you need to, with your own two hands, make happen in your life, 2024 is great for that. Also, dragon archetype is pretty compatible with the sign of Aries as well, because it deals with entering into new territories. It deals with seeing things from a perspective you've never seen things from before. And then with the North Node in your sign, which is also like the head of the dragon, right? Yeah, that's interesting. Two different dragon symbolisms for Aries, North Node, and then also Year of the Dragon. I think that this means that your motivation and inspiration will really start to come back in 2024. It could also mean an expansion of ego or an expansion of the fire element as well. Like really having an end goal in sight is important this year as well. So not just spinning your wheels. If there's anything that I would say is an issue for Aries coming out of 2023, it's like doing things in vain or having certain aspects of your life that are inefficient. Try to really tie all of this up, make it more efficient, and prepare like right in the beginning of 2024 to like become more precise, more efficient, and more properly leveraged in your life to really achieve the bigger goals. So by the time that we get to mid 2024, I feel that things calm down for you. So like summer months, August-ish time period of 2024, I'm feeling a vacating energy. So there's a big push in the beginning of 2024, but by this middle point of the year, it feels like you're going to like maybe need a rest and respite. And then again, the fourth quarter of 2024, or like the third and fourth quarter, around like the October to December period of 2024, is going to be another really hardline push for you guys. So yeah, it's feeling like quarter one and beginning of quarter two is like a very important like reproportioning time. The second and third quarters are like kind of more of a pulled back time. And the fourth quarter is more of a like mad dash for some of you to like really achieve something or to reach a certain baseline in your life. I feel that for you and a few of the other signs this year, it's good to like really try to push through savings goals maybe quicker than you'd anticipated. Maybe this is an important window for you to try to do things quicker than you had anticipated. Okay, so like pulling that 5 or 10 year plan down to like a 3 to 4 year plan. Also putting pretty stringent deadlines onto certain difficulties, okay? The saying no to nightmares intuitive message really applies to Aries as well, and you're going to have the power and the motivation to really get things right if you want to. But it's going to take focus, and it's also a good year for you guys to have wise advice, okay? So having advisors, having counsel, having anyone help you, whether it's like lawyer, whether it's physician, whether it's astrologer, life coach, financial advisor, all of this stuff is quite good for you this year. And be careful of diving too much into any type of DIY culture, as Aries is a sign that likes to do things itself. It likes to do things with its own two hands, but the dragon year indicates for your sign a need to be more efficient and have more teamwork as well. So it's an important year for cultivating relationships for you guys as well. But yeah, really beautiful year for you guys. Let's move on to Taurus in the year of 2024. Okay, Taurus, one of the most activated signs this year. It's been a lot for you over the last few years, actually, having Uranus getting so advanced in your sign. Of course, in the year of 2023, you had both Jupiter and Uranus there. In 2022, you had the North Node. You have a lot of very electric, powerful energy in your recent history. And 2024 is going to augment that a little bit more. Of course, we will have Jupiter changing into Gemini during the summer months, which will take a little bit of that extreme pressure off of you. But there's still something to really click in the first half of the year. So especially the January to April period of time, if you have like anything in Taurus in your chart, this is like really putting something very obvious in front of you. Like, this is what your life purpose is. This is what motivates you. This is really interesting to think of Taurus, like the feeling of motivation, doing a certain type of work that you feel like is right for you, but you're like procrastinating it all the time. But then you switch over to something else and you're like, I actually feel so much fuel and motivation in this. Try to start inching more towards the fields, industries, ideas, projects, hobbies that give you that sense of fuel. Also, anything that you've had in your path over the last few years that was like, I felt so divinely supported. I felt so strong. I felt like I was finally reclaiming who I was. It's really important to understand how that continues to integrate in your experience, because I just feel like you guys have such a multitude of focuses right now. Perhaps there's a serial entrepreneurism happening in Taurus, or perhaps just multiple hobbies, multiple projects, multiple interests, multiple partners. I don't know what it is. But there's something of like having an inflation or all these different replicated things, which makes it hard to kind of like focus in and find that linear path. So it's a very open world experience happening for you guys right now. And I feel you guys kind of wanting to like narrow and make more linear, more expected the things that you're doing. Uranus in Taurus is getting very poetic here. It is a debilitated place for Uranus, this transit that we've had for many years now, since 2018, going until 2026. So yeah, I mean, that's way more than halfway over. We understand what it means now. We understand the different potentials of Uranus in Taurus. And there should be a lot of realization about anything in your life that's overdone, overcharged, with too much energy, too much spending. I mean, we see this so much at like a macro level with inflation, with competitiveness, with having so many different options, so many different paths, so many different locations we could go to, so many different wants as well. The balance is what's important. So we now have the South Node in Libra, which is better, I think, for you guys. Of course, it was very activating over these last few years to have the South Node in Scorpio and North Node in Taurus, but that was mainly about, in 2022, that was mainly about identifying the motivation, identifying the path, okay, the goal. And now with South Node in Libra, it's a rebalancing, sort of regulating energy where it's like, okay, this can't support that. I have to shave that down a little bit. And I have to also rebalance this over here. There's a change in the balance sheet and a very strong challenge about any kind of like jitteriness or any kind of like, yes, I want to do what really matters to me, but I'd rather just make a bunch of money in this job over here. Or I would rather just see the numbers on the screen and get distracted in the moment. So momentary distractions eclipsing out the long-term relevance is important to face in 2024 and prepare transitions for. So in the global dynamics for the last chapter of 2023, I talked about how there were these wooden bridges forming up in the end of 2023. And I feel that oftentimes this is a symbol for many people regarding like, okay, I have this thing that works over here, and I'm kind of scared to leave something that works, even if it's not right for me. But I understand also that it's inevitable. You know, this is my life. This is who I am. This is not me needing to turn myself into like an inanimate object in another person's system, or to become a cog in another line of wheels that someone else has designed and created. Actually, I need my own experience. However, being a cog in a larger line of wheels can sometimes be easier because there's teamwork. There's like a greater system at work. And if it messes up, it's not really your fault, right? You could also compare this to like being an employee versus being an employer, or being a subordinate versus being an authority. There's like a hierarchy thing coming up for you guys with Jupiter and Uranus in your sign, and it's really trying to like break you out of a long-running system or a long-running hierarchy. But with each choice or with each decision, whether you choose to be on either side of this hierarchy, there's a different set of problems. So if you strike out on your own, or if you cross over from something that has worked for a long time but is maybe not, exactly what you see for yourself, that for a while may feel more isolated or more separated until you redesign a better system in your own experience. So I am seeing that for you guys here too. And that would be a good way actually to channel the Jupiter and Uranus in your sign. Because of course, when Jupiter's in your sign, you have good luck. For the first half of this year, you still have Jupiter in your sign, and it's moving direct. It's moving really fast. So this is a time for a Taurus maybe to take a chance, or for a Taurus to trust in divine support, to trust also in luck or good karmas. But having Uranus combining with it actually really amps up the power. Now, what this can also do, like on one hand, you have like this sort of like almost stormy, like, in the sense that a lightning storm, when Uranus and Jupiter are together, it's like a storm. It's like a thunderstorm, lightning storm. In the sense that generates a lot of energy, it can also be chaotic and uncontrollable. So it's just kind of dialogue about what to expect this year. But I would definitely do crossings this year. I would do transitions this year. I would strike out on new paths if you can. And some of you will have to maintain both polarities. So like 2 jobs at once or 2 things, but you have to really balance it where you're not burning out. So if you can't hold 2 polarities without a burnout, something has to go. However, if you can work on both sides of it and actually maintain that dual purpose, that is also indicated. But you just have to be such a smart time budgeter, time manager in 2024. And you also have to be confident in your adaptability and viability in other places. So careful also about getting too attached to any one routine, any one place, any one job, because I just feel like having Uranus and Jupiter there, it's not a time of just expectation being fulfilled. It is a time of getting out of your comfort zone too. But overall, it's very powerful for you guys. And because it's so powerful, I would also be careful of any accidental collateral damage, money spending that never had to happen, waste, impulses, accidentally being mean to somebody, accidentally being careless. Okay, there is a need for caution and care to offset the wild energy for this year, but let's move on. Okay, Gemini for the year of 2024. Okay, Geminis, Jupiter's going into your sign this year. You're about to have a Jupiter return if you had Jupiter in Gemini, or if you just have the sun, moon, or stellium in Gemini, that is about to get expanded and augmented by Jupiter. Powerful, powerful year for a change. Powerful year for crossing a bridge, for crossing into a new territory. I feel this entire section of the zodiac, Taurus, Gemini. Okay, it's like Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Because there's so much activation with the outer planets connecting to these signs, it's like this is your moment. This is your chance to really elevate your voice to the next level. Great time for like voice lessons for Gemini, speaking lessons, speaking out about certain topics. I see you guys really being sophisticated in your speaking. I see you solving a lot of problems through communication. Jupiter in Gemini will increase the amplification of your voice, okay? So maybe if you've wanted to start a podcast, or if you've wanted to start speaking out about like problems, or and not just from the perspective where it's like just feeling like a complaint, or feeling like something that is just like a replication or a mimic of what another person is saying, but actually like really generating a true voice within you that's not been seen elsewhere. The magic energy of Jupiter in Gemini, doesn't it ring well, Jupiter in Gemini? It just like sounds good, though it is of course debilitated in Gemini, but it sounds really cool. So there's a lot of things like that in your life, Geminis, perhaps coming up here. And of course, whenever Jupiter's in your sign, it's always good, but it's a little bit debilitated. You know, things look good on the outside, but they're not feeling good on the inside. There's, you know, the ability to have a certain lifestyle with a credit card, but the actual structure upholding that doesn't exist. There is a feeling of like, wow, this is a really cool thing, but like, is this real? Is this going to last? So pipe dreams. All right, in the year of 2024, we have to be careful about accidentally queuing something up that's a bit of an illusion, kind of like the moon card. Also like the Fool card, it's an interesting intersection happening there for you, where I do feel that you need to strike out, but you have to also maybe really work on your preconception of how any journey can go. So try to not be too attached, which you guys don't really tend to be super attached to things being a certain way anyway. But yeah, you almost have to really let situations evolve in a dynamic and ever-changing way, instead of being attached to like, I'm going to do this and it's going to give me this result, and I've thought of all of this before I even start, and I've planned so well. Plans for everybody in 2024 are, maybe not coming true as easily, but what might actually happen in real life could be much more preferable. Nonetheless, Gemini, even though Jupiter is debilitated in your sign, it is carrying some kind of greater evolution for you on the positive side. But what you want to make sure is that you also don't sell out too easily, or you don't just keep doing what works because it works without it being significant to you. Jupiter in Gemini does cue a challenge of significance. So definitely, and I'm seeing this in so many places, like people finally getting what they feel works in their life, like they wanted it for such a long time. Sometimes it's like, careful what you wish for. Like you might get what you wanted, or you might have over a long time finally created what was set out for. But now having it isn't really how we expected it to feel, but this can be a huge blessing in disguise, because that then kind of like causes you to reprocess or rethink your conceptual thinking ability. So it's going to make it stronger as well. So even though there's kind of like something feeling like it's not what you expected it to be this year, that's making you stronger, and it's giving you a chance to actually become more of a realistic planner, to become more of a realistic creator, and to start creating things that actually are significant beyond the preconceived element of it, and is actually real. Also, it's getting very airy this year as well. Like the air element is going to increase and grow a little bit. I think that the air signs have definitely a leg up here, because it's also like a dragon year, right? Which is about flying and being connected to the air element in a momentous way. So you also have another leg up because of the dragon year. So even though, Jupiter return is always good, or Jupiter coming over anything in your chart that is positive is usually helpful. It kind of offsets it though, because of the debilitation in Gemini, but also dragon year is very good for Gemini. So wherever you have shortfalls, you also have returns. So it's nothing to be worried about this year. But flight could be indicated, okay, flying places in planes, having some type of airtime. So being on like a show, being on radios, talking, podcasting, again, that's what I was thinking about that. Having some kind of monologue also in other people's lives. I see you like maybe traveling this year, or I see Geminis not having a lot of staying power necessarily in certain people's lives, but this is a blessing in disguise, because a lot of the people that you're encountering, like new people this year, like that you haven't met before, aren't necessarily needing to be the long story for you, but it's going to keep refining your filter sort of like who you allow in your life and like what types of personalities, what types of people with what types of stories actually harmonize with you. It's a time of like recultivating relationship harmony through understanding what doesn't work and through maybe having like small monologues or small connecting points to other people, and that telling you more than like long time passing relationships. I also feel that you guys have to increase your altitude in 2024. So rather than taking things down a notch in a lot of ways, you're one of the only signs I would recommend this for. Rather than taking things down or making things more low key, I feel that you guys actually do need an increase. This could be an increase in support, more hiring in your business. This could be also going places that have a higher vibration. Okay, so if you're realizing that this is a huge thing in 2024, actually this entire 3-year cycle, like 2023 to 2026, this is such a big deal. It's like understanding the history of certain areas and also being able to compare your story to those histories and see like what type of alchemy is there in that. Does this story that I'm telling here through my actions harmonize with the story of this area over hundreds, if not thousands of years? Does this make sense? Is there something of like incompatibility with what I'm trying to do? Is that contributing to why things aren't working? And then that's when you realize that the vibration is maybe a little bit low here and you can change things, or you can move around very easily this year. You have good mobility this year. So it seems like a good opportunity to get into more harmonious places, meet more harmonious people, and to find just environments or areas that mesh with you better. It's a really neat energy for you guys this year. Okay, moving on to Cancer. I'm just writing down your timestamp, Cancer. Okay. Cancer, in the year of 2024, we have a year where you get to feel kind of separated from what you're accustomed to, or you get to feel not necessarily above things, but kind of like hermit energy, which is a natural ingrained energy for Cancer anyway. That's one of your ruling archetypes. But it's not feeling lonely. It's not feeling isolated or ostracized either. It's feeling like some of you are really withdrawing and getting out of certain chaotic stories. So the saying no to nightmares message is a big thing for you guys this year. I see you through your own action resolving certain negative storylines that you were having. And I see you kind of resurfacing to, ooh, this is so good, Cancer. This is very psychic. It's like starting to detach or remove yourself from things so that you can almost conceive a new version of yourself. Why is this happening? It's partly because we have Pluto retrograding on your axis. It's like almost done. So it's like this last 15-year cycle of having Pluto in Capricorn is ending in this year. This is the last year where you'll experience that, because of course it takes multiple lifetimes for Pluto to do one orbit around the sun. So this is the last time that Pluto will be on your axis for a Capricorn or a Cancer. And I'm also seeing this intersecting with the energy of Saturn and Pisces that we have this whole year as well, where especially if that's transiting maybe like a water house, 4th, 8th, especially like 8th or 12th house, all right, in your chart, or things under the horizon as well. But it's like the intersection of Pluto and Capricorn and Saturn and Pisces, creating a distance or creating a separation so that you can really go within at a level that like no spiritual person on YouTube can like talk about shadow work enough to like really speak of the level of shadow work or the level of interior sort of like self-rebirthing, self-regeneration that is possible for you this year, but also over the next 3 years in general, or I suppose like 2.5, like 23 to 26. 24, of course, would be, and 25 would be very important in that, because those are like the main meat of that message. So anything Cancer that's needed reinvented in your life will really start to be felt on the inside here. Also, it's kind of magical how you can see examples of other people, or you can see people who've done what it is that you're wanting to do and start to compare, like, is that the story that I want to have? Do I need to recreate someone else's story? Is there like an egotism? Also, Cancer, big thing for you guys. Is there a sort of compensatory egotism where I'm seeing like other people's stories, or I'm seeing other people's experiences and feeling like I need to recreate that, or feeling like that's who I am? This is so prevalent right now with social media, and also just like people being typically more separated or less social after 2020. There's a lot of like observing of other people through media, or observing other stories and like comparing. A lot of comparison and shadow. Now, this can happen at a level of personality and ego. It can also happen at a level of appearance, seeing people with a bunch of plastic surgery, or seeing people with a bunch of like expensive facials, and like, why doesn't my skin look like that? Or do I need to start certain routines or certain investments to like make myself look like that? Or, this can be negative. And then there are ways that it can be positive, like you can figure out certain like health routines that can really help. So it's not all negative, but you have to be careful of comparison. And it also feels like you do have to take measures to make sure that you don't lose in the expectations of others. So collective bargaining, or even like family level. When I say collective, I'm not really talking like high level institutional collectives. I'm talking like maybe having family members who expect you to support them financially, or spend of your own reserves in a way that they think is like the best way. And then this can like deplete your resource pools. It's not about being cruel and cutting people off. I mean, there are some people that we do need to support, like children, or, even parents sometimes need support during times like these. But there's a rebalancing there. I think the South Node in Libra is going to have you really thinking about like, am I giving or spending of my time, money, energy because it's the right thing, or because there's an expectation grid, or because also maybe I'm not really asserting who I've really become, so it's kind of causing like a boundarylessness. You know what I mean? That's a big thing with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, is like a lack of boundaries, especially for the water signs, okay? So having people call you all the time, if you're a therapist, or if you're someone who works with like clients of any kind, like having clients like really pushing the boundaries, trying to get you to accept less money for what you do, trying to also like form personal relationships with you, trying to, and that not necessarily being authentic, but that being something to like get, free advice, or, and maybe it's not like planned like that, but you have to be careful about also relationships kind of being really unclear, like losing bounds of propriety, mixing business and pleasure. But I feel like you guys are pretty good with that stuff anyway. It's going to be a little bit more subtle than that. It's going to be kind of like an identity that you have as a helper or a healer, an identity, because Cancer is really a strong like light worker healer energy right now, potentially as well. So that can get really monopolized by certain people. You have to be careful about it. Anything that feels like you're being monopolized, like also like dating someone who wants you to stop talking to your friends, or noticing that the spouse or the long-term marriage partner is the only person whose actions really affect us, anything that it's like, this is the only person who makes it where my bills can be paid, or this is the only person who truly understands who I am. This is the only option that I have, right? When people only have one option, they only have one option, right? So that's very disempowering. And I think that there's a lot of waking up in Jupiter and Gemini. Jupiter moving into your collective 12th house is going to start like making this something that you sense like, wow, this is the only place that I get money from. That means I can't do anything else. That means that I have to do that. Feelings like that. Or this is the only person who is feeling like a romantic interest to me. That means that I am kind of like monopolized, or this is the only person or the only location that I know anybody. So it's like, it starts to either see you as a more separate person, and maybe like, I do see some Cancers also traveling around the world. I see some this is surprising because it's not about the home base for you guys right now as much. I see some Cancers being in places where they don't know anybody, and that being empowering. You see, this can be actually channeled in a positive, empowering way with a really powerful story element. But that's a short-term chapter. You know, it's not the way that we live our whole lives. But I mean, it can be channeled in a sort of artistic or empowering way at the short term. But I challenge you, Cancers, to think about the long-term relevance, connection grids, and also having competition in your life, or having certain systems that guarantee that you're not monopolized, that sort of keep your power as much as you can. And there's really no like secret formula to having that. I can't like tell you what to do, but it's important to notice in 2024, as your whole year kind of like revolves around you really clicking, okay, that's my source of XYZ. Like, that's where all of the money comes from in my life, is through that job. And it's important to diversify a little bit and start to build up or create alternatives. Also, it's a culminating year for you. So even though you might click or realize some of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're changing right now. Also, you might be having to like constantly deal with old stories as Pluto continues on this cusp. And it won't be until 2025 when it's firmly into Aquarius, where like you're totally maybe starting over, or you're getting into a different type of storyline. But because of the way that things are culminating, you have power over, you have a certain relevance or power as someone who knows like what has happened, or it's like, you know, if you are reading a long book, like, and it's about to end, you know, it's about to end. You have a lot of knowledge over what's happened. So it's kind of like an excitement as well. Like, this is finally about to be over. I'm not going to have to deal with this anymore. I'm about to finish this story, but it's not quite ended yet. This is something that both Cancer and Capricorn will feel in 2024. So if there is something like that where you just like, I can't quit this job yet, or I can't conclude, enjoy the parts of it that are nice, like getting more flowers around yourself. How can you use aesthetics? How can you use it? And again, this is not like a long-term solution, but if you have things that are like really weighing you down, try to offset it with something lighter and beautiful until the real change comes. Okay, beautiful for Cancers. Let's move on to Leos for 2024. Okay, Leo's very grand this year. There is a common ground between the zodiac sign of Leo and the dragon archetype. Again, dragon is correlated with royalty, with king or queenship, with real vitality and climax and ascension, altitude, elevation of your story. So that makes me think of the sign of Leo. And sort of like the sign of Scorpio in astrology. I think that you are going to have a major empowerment in 2024. You're one of the signs that can really work with the debilitated Jupiter and Gemini energy, which will come at the middle part of the year. Well, this is a sextile to you. So this will actually be a period of time, I think, where you might have a healing. You might rediscover your light here. You might rediscover why it is you do what you do. And some of you, this isn't like that great, but it's like, it's cool. And some of you are going to have like, okay, now I know what I want to do, but it cancels out a lot of the other stuff that I'm so accustomed to. So that's a little bit destabilizing, but it's like better to know what you want to do than to kind of be stuck like flailing or spinning your wheels in something that just is like lukewarm. Okay, so the lukewarm stuff is going to start to decline here. So if you do have any declines in your life, like a declining business, if you have a declining or deteriorating structure, if you have anything that's like long-term, that's on the negative, try to take assessment of that and see like, is this kind of like lukewarm to me anyway? Is there some type of like maybe higher support that's evident in this declining? The most important thing for you guys in 2024 is to not get discouraged by decline, because Leo is one of those signs that can be like very attached to like, okay, it goes up, that's good. It goes down, that's bad. This is where you guys might do good to have like Scorpios in your life, or Cancers, or Pisces people who can see a little bit more of a poetic picture in loss, okay? Because you guys are up for a little bit of loss in order to have the bandwidth and the free time and the free energy to prioritize what you're actually already totally aware that you want to do. So in the 2024 year cycle, there's a divine energy that kind of really starts to augment and put in front of you all the time these higher purposes, and it's going to start to become harder in 2024 to focus yourself or put your energy towards things which waste time, okay, which are, kind of like numbing you out, any types of addictions. I feel that it's a great year for being done with addictions. It's a great year also for like the body. Okay, the body is really emphasized for you in 2024. I'm seeing Leos with the Jupiter sextile, maybe getting body goals that you've never had before. Some of you could get into really good shape here. Some of you could also like really kind of be defying age as well. There's a great way through like health and through diet to have a much more youthful glow. It's not about looking younger than you are. Age is a great thing. But I think that you guys are going to get lighter and you're going to shed off a lot of heavy energy that was maybe like dimming you a little bit, as that was one of the main points about the 2024 year cycle that I thought was so important, was restoring light. And that's maybe not going to happen immediately this year, but there's something that you're starting to introduce into your life that is lightening your load a little bit. There's something of a kinder, more charitable energy. There's something of an optimism as well that will really start to gain you more support. And I would say what that message is telling me is like pessimism is not really supported here, or the critical mind that invites poverty, all of those types of ideas will really start to come through here. And while it's important to be critical about certain things, I feel that you also have to know when and when not to apply that. And I feel that also if you are super critical towards other people, or if you're, and I've already seen this with some Leo people starting to come to fruition in 2023, like people can get really worn down, hollowed out, even just off-put or with the back turned away from the Leo, just because the Leo is unwilling to, accept that things could go well, or that there could be a positive outcome, or that a bond or a connection with another person could be comforting, even if the Leo's preconceived notion is not fulfilled about that person or experience. So this is so important, Leos. It's a little bit complicated. You might go back and listen to those last few seconds and really parse that out, because that really sums it up perfectly. But there's a feeling of like what you expect people to be, who you expect people to be with, understandings that you expect people to have, that it only like hurts you if it doesn't come true. It's like stopping relying on other people to be a certain way from the get-go. Like really acknowledging other people's autonomy, really acknowledging the risk to your expectation, or the risk to your health by having certain expectations. So expectations need to tone down a little bit as it relates to other people. And you can actually start to benefit from the autonomy of others. Like you can actually see that people start to naturally support you more, or people start to naturally come to your aid, or come to your projects, or your just come to your projects with more of a supportive hand, more helping hands for Leo in the year of 2024. Sometimes just by saying less, or by being in your presence without having to use any type of like force or anger or expectation to try to influence the situation. It literally is just a case for you and a lot of the fixed signs this year of like your presence being more powerful perhaps than the words, or than the goals as well, which is a bit egotistical to think about, but I do think that it is true during this time for most Leos. And it's perhaps more egotistical to like push so hard in those other ways that are not just like with presence, but with, I'm going to tell that person my political ideas, and they're going to change their minds because this is my idea, and that means that it's the right way. Anything that's like that is going to keep getting harder and harder and harder to continue on experiencing. It's like declining because it's just like off-putting to other people. But it's not Leo's job, I suppose, either to satiate other people. But okay, this is important. Yeah, this is what this is coming to. If there's a critical kind of like haughty attitude, it has to be backed up by a lot. So if you have someone who's like giving you a service or somebody who's helping you, you have to also understand here that like to be critical or haughty or to have a certain attitude with these people means that you may have to hire a different person, or means that you may have to double your budget of like whatever this required, whether this is time, money, or energy, to back up that flair or to back up that sort of like gaseous, like really egotistical energy. It's like ego really costs in 2024. Oh my gosh. It's like, and it doesn't mean that it's wrong. This is kind of like what it is, I think, to be in a royal type of energy line, like kings or queens, would replace people all the time and go to great expenses to like have this feeling of like, if I'm not pleased, then like everything else is in jeopardy for everybody else. But that has a huge price, and most people can't afford that price, and it does end up in isolation and hermit mode for a lot of people in this paradigm, especially, sort of regardless of the price. But anyway, for those of you who understand what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying. The most important thing for you in 2024 is starting to lighten, like lighter-handed motions when it comes to power instead of being so heavy-handed. And this is going to give you more. So anyway, moving on. All right, Virgos for the year of 2024. Okay, Virgos, what do we have to talk about for you? Okay, connections and independence. Being coupled or being single. There's a big challenge for you coming up regarding your own independence and how you've cultivated that over the last few years and how you might want to make changes to that. So of course it depends on what types of Virgos are watching. I know that we've got all kinds of different people here, but I feel that you guys have to make more movements towards independence in 2024. It's hard to be relying on other people for housing. It's hard to be relying on other people for anything, actually. And it might feel kind of good. It might feel like, wow, I have like all of this support, or I have all of these people supporting my ideas or my self. But it starts to generate a lot of like addictive cycles. I'm seeing for many Virgo people, like the level of reliance. Like it's like when you rely too much on someone, that's almost like a similar energy to addiction, right? In the same way that people might rely on a certain substance to give them a feeling, or that someone may rely on a certain media to, I don't know, make their routine throughout the day more enjoyable. Reliances and dependences are coming up for you guys because we have Saturn opposing you in 2024 for the entire year on your axis. And we have Jupiter moving into your fellow mutable sign of Gemini, Uranus in your fellow earth sign of Taurus. You're so supported. But now is the time where you have to really consolidate your support in a way that's more, okay, so this is hard to explain, but it takes on a different psychological perception. Like, okay, I have this support from these people. I have all of these different things that I've made for myself, like a life's work or some kind of long-running system or design. You have to see it as like one entity or one functioning system rather than independent, small little things that you're relying on all the time. So this is a major growth of perception for you happening here. That's kind of like a lot of what 2024 is about for Virgo. As a lot of these other energies affecting you, Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Gemini, Uranus in Taurus, these are all hard to quantify energies. Saturn in Pisces is very hard to quantify. Jupiter in Gemini is absolutely impossible to quantify. Uranus in Taurus is really overwhelming to try to quantify. So I see some Virgos with your type of mind, right? Like the sixth house mind, the mercurial mind, which really wants to quantify things. There's like a frustration that's building. It's like, I don't understand how much this is worth. I don't know the value of this house. I don't know the value of any of this stuff in my life. And therefore it's feeling hard to make the bigger, grander decisions that this year is going to require for Virgos. So what do we do? What do we do in this kind of situation? It's one of the more subdued energy lines for Virgo. So it feels that there's a poetry to this angle that's coming in, the Saturn opposition angle from Pisces, the Uranus trine from Taurus, Jupiter trining you in the first part of the year, and building up to a Jupiter square for the second half of the year from Gemini. It feels like a very poetic, artistic use of imagery, I think, that's empowering for you. What this can mean is redecorating your house, putting up certain types of images. The little stuff, okay, is going to be a great area of empowerment for you as you don't feel forced or compelled to make huge decisions because of the way that things are maybe still undetermined. So this is like the Tinder portion for Virgo, is like knowing that you have larger decisions coming on, but you still have to kind of gather some information, or you have to gather more insight also about who it is that you want to be, which might be more understood through cultivating talents, okay, learning new things. This may give you more direction. Also, art forms, music, poetry, decoration. This feels like a wonderful area of growth for Virgos, which is going to further refine and allow time as well to work in your favor. I think that having the Saturn opposition says that time will also straighten out some of these issues. You don't have to be so heavy-handed with your own motions. But as you move through this year, I feel, especially as you come past the halfway point, like August to November of 2024, you're going to start being placed in very decisive roles, and there's going to be a quick way that you're having to face each situation after another. So the first half of the year feels more like thinking about and sort of pondering, deliberating, and then the second half of the year is going to be more like decision, which creates chain link, cause and effect. And you have to be very prepared, but there needs to be something that sustains throughout this entire transition for you all, which may have something to do with your home or creating more of a sanctuary, right? I've talked about that with Saturn in Pisces, and since it's on your axis, it's almost like having a sanctuary space or having some kind of beauty or safety or cleanliness as well, purity, that is reserved for you as you go through a very defining year. So let's move on to Libra. Okay, Libra. Wow, your energy is so potent this year. Probably one of the most potent I've felt so far in this series. It's probably because you have the nodal axis in your sign, the South Node in Libra. We are going to be having more Venus conjunctions with the South Node, which in 2023, that happened in November. And that was one of my favorite transits of the 2023 year cycle, was Venus conjunct the South Node. It was a very subtle reminder of the power of time and the power of like not getting too freaked out about what we need to do with our own hands, but rather trusting that we're making grander choices that allow time to work in our favor. Well, that's kind of the entire energy of 2024, I feel, for you, is starting to work with time more favorably. Having investments that really give back over time, not just immediate returns, not just short-term gains, but knowing that you're placing your time, money, and energy in ways that support the long term, which means a devaluation, Libras, for anything in your life that is a short-term gain. So businesses that aren't sustainable, addictions, sugar tooth, okay, that short-term sugar rush, which results in a longer-term health decline. All of that is going to really wrap back around, and I feel that it's a long-term momentum for you. Like I feel since about 2020, actually, you guys have really been working, or at least you've known in the mind, like, what is not going to work in the long term. But sometimes in this kind of energy paradigm we've been in for the last few years, what happens is we get like really tied into fear about leaving things behind or not having that familiarity. Some of us would rather have that cyclical sugar rush, even though we know it's bad for us, just to create some type of routine and cycle. Now, 2024 is a bit of a riddle for you guys too, especially the first half. So about like a February to July 2024, I'm feeling that you guys have deliberation, a lot of time spent in solitude, a lot of time spent reflecting, a very strong need for wise choices, also for being a little bit more, what's the right word? I was going to say like chivalrous, but it's not exactly the right context, but it's like careful about losing control of the words, careful about accidentally generating opponents where you didn't need to because of a kind of like stream of consciousness. Careful about also redirecting energy towards people unnecessarily. So like being out of control of your energy. It's the same thing as having like a sugar tooth or an addiction where it's like we have to become very good managers of whatever energy or resources that we have here. It's a very important year of resources, as I said in the intuitive messages. And Libra is one of the signs that that's most accurate for, because your South Node in Libra, alongside like the Jupiter, Uranus, and Taurus that we have this year, the Pluto on the cusp, it's like making people really think about, well, what's going to be there for me if this doesn't work out? What strong resource pools do I have in my life? And a lot of us have to create it ourselves through rebalancing, rebudgeting, or reappropriating certain things that we're accustomed to. So 2024 for you, Libra, is also getting out of a comfort zone. Maybe there's a decrease in budget that gives you more in the future, and that requires you to get out of the comfort zone of your current lifestyle. Also, if you guys are doing really well, you'll be able to like downsize and feel like you have more while also saving more. That is the optimum. But then, yes, some people will feel really like excruciating with having to cut down certain expenses or having to be less saturated in certain formats as well. And you guys could also receive certain backlash also from people who expect you to spend or to give or to be there for them. But it's that Venus South Node energy which is going to allow time to overcome that. So I also feel that 2024 for Libras is not really a great year for needing to rely on a lot of people. So launching some type of project that requires other people to engage it is not good for 2024 because it's supporting this messed up energy line that we have right now where it's like, if these people don't support me, I'm not going to feel good about myself. Or without people supporting this, without reliance or dependence on other people, this project or this idea isn't viable. So again, it's like disempowering to actually feel viability as a result of others. And I see you guys really detaching from that condition in your life where it's like, if I don't get validated by these people, I don't feel like this is right for me. So that's going to like decrease the egotism in your life as well, where your self-worth is based on other people's validation. And that's a very powerful, like truly powerful transformation that you'll have where like you don't necessarily need people to put the stamp of approval on what you're doing. You don't need that to feel like your life is worthy. So anything Libras that deals with like, I feel comfortable if I have a certain like seal or stamp or paper. I feel like, all of these, in these two-dimensional constructs support and back me up. Well, that's really under fire right now. And we see that at a global level where a lot of these preceded or preconceived notions and norms that deal with the two-dimensional are kind of like either just not comprehensible by most people, or it's just resented as well. So it's about transcendence here, and it's about also creating things that really transcend your previous conception of what is or is not supported. And it shows kind of like how much we are or are not on our side, right? Like how much we're in our own way, or not, when we actually overcome the need to have some type of 2D support mechanism helping us to sleep at night, basically. So that's kind of complicated, but there's a lot of this with like also the Saturn quincunx from Pisces, the Neptune quincunx from Pisces, the Pluto quincunx from Capricorn, though it will shift to the trine during the second 2 quarters of the year, but be back in Capricorn in late Q3 and through Q4. It's kind of like totally reprogramming what you think is legitimizing for you and how your own comprehension of the world is generating certain questions of legitimacy and how that's being redirected towards yourself, whether or not other people have any relevance to that or not. So there's kind of this thing about like over projecting one's own worldview, and that ending up being like an impoverishing element towards one's own lifestyle that has to be reconciled in 2024. And a lot of you Libras are just going to do better by allowing time, but also planting seeds, like real seeds, things that actually generate an outcome, not just writing words on papers. And that's going to do better for you guys, and then letting time allow those to grow, right? Nothing really grows from paper. Nothing grows. That's one of the reasons why we have these hyperinflationary fiat crises right now, is because that actually kind of like wastes people's time as they think about it, or they try to transact in these like crazy amounts, or they try to get these contracts going. And of course, there's still power in those systems, but a lot of time just goes to, trying to strategize around those things, which is perhaps ultimately disempowering in the long run. So there's a different kind of like relationship with action versus strategy versus planning that's going to ultimately be very empowering for you, Libra, if you can just kind of get around it. Now, that was all very complicated. Like, whoa, this is very like South Node in Libra, alongside like Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus, Jupiter in Gemini. It's kind of like very difficult to articulate, but at a more simple level, Libras, at a more mundane level, what talents you actually have, what contributions you can actually make that work with the long run are going to be what to do, rather than freaking oneself out in the mind or like over planning or over thinking things in that 2-dimensional way. Okay, moving on to Scorpio, 2024 year ahead. Hi, Scorpios. Welcome to your 2024 year ahead forecast. Okay, hit the like button below if you're a Scorpio interested in, at long last, a year of peace, okay? Or at least a year of wonderful, wonderful understanding of the longer-term viability, the longer-term path. This is a great year for you guys. I love 2024 for Scorpios. I've been getting a lot of insight about the potential for this year ahead. Why is it such a great year for you? And when I say great, I don't necessarily mean positive, but also great in kind of a just like grand way, or strong, powerful way. Well, your ruling planet of Pluto is on the cusp this year, as it was in 2023, but it will be for the last time on the cusp this year, between Capricorn and Aquarius. Also, your traditional ruling planet of Mars is going to conjoin every single outer planet this year at some point in time as well. So Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are all getting exact Mars conjunctions this year. I think that it's one of the most active years for progress in a Scorpio's life. It's very transformative. It's very grand feeling, but it's actually not as visible as you might associate these types of descriptions with. So if you guys heard Cancer's reading, I was talking about how the trines from Saturn and Neptune, as well as the changes happening with Pluto too, are creating sort of like a separation or a distance from the action. It's almost like seeing things happen, observing or witnessing things happen, but not necessarily being on either side of a conflict or either side of some type of commotion. So there's a lot of like commotion that I see you witnessing or seeing. And this is definitely happening at like a global level, where especially in like the West, for example, where there's a lot of like seeing like a war conflict, or there's seeing these conflicts or seeing these problems, but it's like not like in your own experience. So this is kind of like this energy channeling in a like a worldly way. But this is going to be happening in a lot of Scorpios' lives where it's like, okay, it's in front of me. I see this happening. What do I do? Do I like try to connect with this? Do I try to like withdraw from this? Do I take a side? Do I like, this feels very like quote unquote empowering, but it's going to like really charge up the karmic effects, like how we move through this year. So what I recommend with things feeling so conflicted, but you not necessarily being tied to it specifically, what I recommend is effective action at the level that you actually have control in your life. And I recommend, Scorpio, that throughout this time of sort of like observed difficulty, this could also be like observing family conflicts, observing, certain economic difficulties that don't really involve you, but you like see it, or you are very loosely tied to it, but it's not really something that messes you up. This is also like Pluto at the anaretic degree of Capricorn, your ruler, at the anaretic degree of the Saturn ruled sign of Capricorn. It's like, it feels kind of surreal. Surreal is the right word, when you can like see conflict or you can see difficulty, but it's not like yours. It's very thought provoking to me, and I think that it's interesting to think about why this happens energetically, or what the karma behind this type of outcome is. But a lot of you have to turn away from it, and you it's not that you need to turn away because you might be like learning through conflict, or you might be getting quite an education on like strategies, or it's not really even strategies. It's like an education on cause and effect, or an education on conflict. Okay. Like, why did two nations or groups go to war? How did that happen? What are the histories there? Why is the conflict lasting as long as it is? And like through this space, through like seeing it or witnessing it, but also like, developing at the same time independently, it's kind of a very educating process. And it's like really seeing how real life works. So that's actually what I want to focus on for you guys for 2024 year ahead, is seeing how real life works, how long you can go with a negative diet before it starts affecting your health. Okay, not too long. How long a structure, building, or house can go without life in it before it totally deteriorates. How long a certain unrealistic lifestyle can be upkept before it starts depleting your resources beyond repair. This is more so what it's about. So when I'm talking about like the observation of conflict, like there is something for some of you that can like go at a high level. But for most of you, it needs to be understanding cause and effect in a more real way, right? Like Capricorn, last moments of Capricorn, Pluto Capricorn deals with the real material structures and resources, and then your ruling planet being there, like the ending or the death or the completion of certain cycles relating to the material world. That's a PowerPoint for you. That's a place of power and learning for you. And it's like, okay, I realize that after I stopped working out, like within 2 years, all of that muscle was gone. Or I realized like after I started using credit cards without thinking about my budget, that I was living paycheck to paycheck again without realizing it. Okay, I realize now that with the passage of time, after being in a conflict cycle with another person for so many years, I've started to like depend on conflict as a cycle in my life. And it's not even, or also with like addiction, as I've been in a certain addiction, it's started to desensitize me, and it takes more and more and more. So it's like these easy cause and effect outcomes that you can be very powerful to click and move on from. And through these like realizations, you can also create new systems and structures, as Pluto will go into Aquarius, of course, this year as well. So Pluto-Uranus combination, your ruling planet going from the Saturn-ruled sign to the Uranus-ruled sign of Aquarius. Although, yes, Aquarius was ruled by Saturn before Uranus was discovered. So it's kind of like a Saturn-Saturn motion of Pluto, but it's a very different kind of Saturn energy. But it does still deal with structures. Yes, Aquarius does still deal with systems and structures because of its longer-term rulership by Saturn before the discovery of Uranus. What this means for you, though, Scorpio, is that it's going to take some creativity. So you can like observe, this finishes, this concludes, this doesn't, and then you can start to create or innovate new systems. It's a very good year for innovation for Scorpios. Leverage, creation, having your finger to the wind, understanding through this education we're talking about here, also like what the likely outcomes for current decisions being made are. This gives you a leg up. This makes you perhaps like a better investor of time, money, and energy. So there's like a new momentum shaping up there. You can see that. But Scorpios, aside from this, what I want to say also for you for 2024, before we move on to Sagittarius, there is an importance this year in not settling for something that's not also worthy of you for a very long time. Also, an importance placed on timers. Okay, so clocks. If something isn't appropriate for you and you don't feel that you can change that right this second, this is real life, of course, what is the strict timeline put on the change? That's going to happen for a lot of you this year. And then that can also be very positive for some of you as you can really strategize around a longer term momentum. Also, there's more youth. I feel a more youthful energy as Pluto is about to move into 0 Aquarius. And then in 2025, it's going to get a lot more like young feeling. But you're okay, yeah, another thing, sorry, just more energy that's coming out for Scorpio. Something else that needs to be said is that you are perhaps also in the process of a self-rebirth or a self-redefinition, meaning that it's almost like gestalt. It's like the birth has not happened yet, but it's very advanced. So it's like a late-term pregnancy energy. Also, I feel for you with Saturn in Pisces and then Pluto at the last degrees of Capricorn. It feels like because of that, you might not be super mobile, or you might have to have like a lot of care in place. Also very easy to have pregnancy or to have fertility this year with all of the earth and water. Uranus, Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, Pluto in Capricorn, huge Taurus stellium, Pisces stellium. Yeah, very fertile time for you at many different levels. So like having children, but also creating new endeavors or creating new projects, gardening, anything like that. Very powerful for you here. But also kind of like rooting you down, you know? Yeah, it's kind of like a confinement or being rooted down in some ways. Not for all Scorpios. If you've got a lot of Sag, that could change. But like, yeah, witnessing things from a sort of like stabilized point of long-running momentum is the likelihood, but also a lot of safety because of that. So very, very interesting year. I could think a lot about that for you guys, but I want to move on as to not get too imbalanced with how much time I'm spending for each sign. But yeah, Sagittarius, okay, for the year of 2024. Let's see. I'm just going to refill my coffee, Sagittarius. Let's hit the like button if you're refilling your coffee too, or if you are a Sagittarius who loves coffee or anything, if you can just hit the like button to get this video out there. I have my army of Sagittarians hitting the like button. Thank you guys so much. Okay, Sagittarius, I am back with a bit of caffeine, and we are getting through these 2024 year ahead forecasts. What I am thinking for Sagittarius for this year, we have Jupiter re-entering your axis, which even though it is, of course, debilitated in the sign of Gemini, it is at home in your sign of Sagittarius. I think that it gives a somewhat dramatic flair to a lot of the things that you're going through. As I was initially thinking about your sign, I was feeling that things are going to get a little bit more grand for you in the year of 2024. And it's almost like, I don't want to call it cliche, but there's a feeling of like, yes, if you just kind of dress up the experience, it's going to be more well received. If you invest a little bit more into your self-care routine, you're going to come off more rested and more capable, therefore more capable. If you just perhaps increase your prices as a business owner. You're going to make up for your business shortfall. Okay, there are like very simple things that you guys can do within limits, within reason, to really turn the tide of your situation. And coming out of 2023, during your season, as this video is actually being filmed in Sagittarius season of 2023, and we have this new moon in Sagittarius as I'm filming it, so I have a lot of natural insight into Sagittarius. There's an importance placed on turning the tide on the difficulties that the 2020 Jupiter and Capricorn year cycle put into your experience. So any kind of poverty mindset, any kind also of committing to things which are beneath you, or feeling like your livelihood or well-being depends on this job, this income, these Capricorn things, right? We're going to be seeing that somewhat dismantled this year. In fact, we might see it totally dismantled, as there's kind of like a feeling of Sagittarius being like, actually, it doesn't matter what the bank account says. I am confident in my talents and capabilities, aside from the dollar amount of the equation, or aside from the things that people say about what certain material constructs prove about people's worth. So I do see you in 2024, just pure Sagittarius energy. There is going to be a slight turning away, or tide turning, as it relates to being focused on material things. You might be focusing less on the material and perhaps more on your persona, or more on your talents and your mind, your mindsets. And this is actually very recommendable for you guys. This is why I recommended in the Saturn and Pisces video, this mutable Saturn, which is Saturn, your fellow mutable sign. Also, Pisces was ruled by Jupiter before Neptune was discovered. The way Saturn is hitting you in this year ahead indicates a need to work more on the magic of your current goals, to work more on the alchemy, to work more on the capacity for expression, such as perhaps speaking lessons. I was talking a little bit about this for Gemini as well, about how like you might be having to speak more, or your voice may be more amplified, or perhaps you're getting more airtime. And because it's the debilitation of Jupiter, this can be really good for some, but also really tough. So if we are trying to speak in a language that we only have survival knowledge of, we may not come off as fluent, right? So that's a message that I'm getting for you too, is like, what do you have fluency in? What do you want fluency in? Watch out also for attempting to be fluent in something that you're not. I feel like you have to build up to capacity, or you have to build up. So it's a really good year for already having done it. So like say for the last 8 or 10 years, you've gotten that PhD, or you've been doing that sort of like material Capricorn, like bit by bit, rung by rung, portion by portion, I'm year by year, I'm getting to that graduation point. If you're still there, that's fine, but try to not force it to happen too soon, as you could come off as like undercooked if you haven't been in something for a very long time. Of course, as I've said, we have Pluto at the last degrees of Capricorn, entering the year of 2024 and ending the year of 2024. So basically, even though we're going to have Pluto in Aquarius during the middle portion, since we're entering and ending 2024 with Pluto and Capricorn, I still consider it a Pluto and Capricorn year. So it's at the final degree. It's been a 15 plus year cycle of Pluto. Therefore, the feeling is culmination. Also having Saturn in the final sign of the zodiac, the feeling is, I've been working for so long to achieve this. I have momentum behind me here. That's why this isn't hard to me, is because I'm used to this. And also through studying and studying and studying, I've finally achieved a degree of mastery, or some kind of talent that's different. So differentiation is important for you guys in this year ahead. Do not feel like you need to emulate someone else. So if you're like beginning in the music industry or something, don't feel like you basically have to recreate someone else's style or sound. Individuality is really important. Rare talents are really important. In a hyperinflationary economic situation, this is what matters, is like real talents, things that are not in high supply. That is what kind of defies the economic downturn that is working in a very confusing, complicated way in the year of 2024. So that's where I feel that you guys have it. For those of you who have like a lot of Scorpio or Capricorn in your chart, and maybe there are important material elements to what you're dealing with, again, because of the Pluto transit, I am going back to what I said in the Saturn and Pisces video, which is, yes, linked below, about how it's important to kind of get that stuff just fine as it is, not overdo, not underdo, and kind of let things coast as much as possible so that you can focus on the real time-sensitive, important talents that you're building. So it's a dragon year, which is so compatible with the sign of Sagittarius. You can really shine in your individualism. You can really shine in a type of music or art or creative capacity that is different from the rest, and it's really going to fly above the rest. Also flying, I said this for Gemini, like flying on planes, traveling, is indicated for some of you if you're less materially focused. So if you've got like a bunch of mutable stuff in your chart, a lot of fire, a lot of air, very indicated. But if you have more water and earth, again, there's kind of a feeling, as I was saying for Scorpio, of like being rooted down and kind of being in a slightly less mobile, but it doesn't mean that it's not changeable. But yeah, just the innate Sagittarian energy, I do see you guys having a lot of movement. I see you also learning more. It's a great time to start new degree programs. It's a great time for graduation. It's a great, powerful time for new creative ventures, but be careful about getting too chained to them. There's an important balance needed with the South Node in Libra between how much time you have to give something versus also like not being too flighty with it, like redoing that balance of like scheduling and, getting things properly scheduled will be a powerful thing for you this year. Having good time management skills will be important. And also just kind of being fabulous, honestly, Sagittarius. Like, I'm serious, like honestly, and this is a little bit, or to some this might seem superficial, but it's not. In this type of energy this year, just going with like the brighter color, even like the bigger or more pronounced seams or shapes of clothing, something that gives you height, something that gives you stature, something that gives you prominence, even just in a totally just a physical and, seemingly unsubstantial way, can change up your margin quite a bit this year. Also, just anything that deals with trajectories and altitudes. So if you're buying a house, like try to put it higher up in, like careful about having a bunch of things like over the top of you. Like it's better to increase, even if you had to like downsize to like go upwards. Do you get what I'm saying? Like careful also about like being subservient to people, being underneath people, being, meekness is very important and humility is very important during this time, but it is a dragon year. And I feel like you have to also show the counterbalance to whatever you've been demonstrating over the last few years, which I feel has been very meek for Sagittarius. So maybe there's a change there. Definitely don't fear the colors like red, orange, purple this year, even silvers, these very typical Sagittarian colors, those really fiery orange colors, crimsons, okay? Because I feel that just in this year ahead, because I'll tell you, okay, 25 and 26 year cycles are very careful. They're very cautious. They're very scrutinized. They're very precise. So there's this little window here in 2024 to kind of bring contrast to what has been before in the last few years and then what's coming next as well. But overall, Sagittarius, there's more leeway for you in 2024. There's more height. There's more natural margin. Though, be mindful of your words, okay? I'm not saying you need to censor yourself. I'm not saying you need to be doing white lies or anything like that. But the Jupiter in Gemini feels to me like a reckless speaking or reckless like tweeting. Okay, there might be a lot of crazy like things that we don't even remember that we said. Okay, so try to be mindful with that, as you could have sort of like a gaseous energy with what you're speaking. So try to like also keep in mind like who's around you, who's the audience. Are there people around you who would ever use your words against you? If so, you might be more moderated there. If you trust the people around you, maybe it can be more open. I don't know. You have to take a lot of things into account, and also like how you're dressing in certain situations, how you're coming off. Anything that deals with public spaces, anything that deals with social media, okay, talking to groups of people, but specifically where your physical body is, and that connecting to a bunch of other people, it has to be really deliberate, but it is likely for you. It's likely for you, like singing. I'm seeing a lot of Sagittarians on the stage, whether it's singing, acting, public speaking, and I'm seeing that needing to be pretty careful and somewhat flamboyant as well for this year. So that's interesting. But yes, let's move on to Capricorn. Okay, 2 hours even. Capricorn, year of 2024. It goes fast, okay? This is the final year of Pluto in your sign. Okay, so there's a lot of culmination, there's a lot of conclusion, there's a lot of guaranteeing something to yourself, showing something to yourself. A lot of you could get rewards here. A lot of you could become the head of your family, or could become the leader of a certain group that you've been in for a long time. And don't fear this. Don't fear the limelight coming to you. There's going to be an option here to either take things to the next level or to withdraw and let other people take over and maybe go elsewhere. But there is a shift one way or another with your control spectrum, with how much you're putting onto your plate. Dragon archetype is very compatible with Capricorn because Capricorn is the highest sign in the zodiac. It's the 10th house, so it's the apex of the astrological wheel. Dragon is also like a flying energy. So I feel that there's something there. There's something about being really high up. Maybe it's like a house in the mountains. Maybe it is also, I'm not so much feeling flying for you guys. Like it's more of something material or structured in a high place. So this could also be principles, goals, ideas that are really entrenched and have a height about them. And this could be starting to let new people into your fold, or letting new people into your trusted places. Okay, I'm feeling that for Capricorns. I'm feeling like the hermit stage that you've been in starts to open up a little bit. And even though you might still have like, that sort of hermit archetypal, reserved mountain house or whatever, maybe more people are coming into that space, or people are starting to see how you've lived. People are starting to see what your purview was for all these years that Pluto was in your sign as it prepares to move into Aquarius. Now we have Jupiter in Gemini. It starts out in Taurus in the beginning of 2024. Take advantage of that time. So January through April, we have an all planets direct in that time, and we have Jupiter trining whatever you have in Capricorn. That is a better time for risks, things that you feel need luck, investments, sturdiness, decision-making, anything relating to material structures. Once we hit June, all of a sudden it's going to be like Jupiter in Gemini mode, and that's going to quincunx a Capricorn. So people are going to really be holding you to your word, okay? People are going to remember what you've promised. People are going to also remember what you've dismissed or what you have rejected as well. And a lot of people are going to come back and be like, did that make sense? It's easy during this year ahead to see an employee that you fired now with their own company or with a higher position somewhere else. There are like weird things happening where it's like maybe you didn't believe in someone and now they have a higher status elsewhere, or someone that you believed in may not be providing what you expected. So it's a feeling of reasserting the pieces on the chessboard, and a question about considering people, okay, people like pieces on a chessboard. So this hyper strategic energy of Pluto and Capricorn is already going to start kind of not resonating. And there's going to be more of a need for like team spirit, collective unity, collective equality, okay, as Pluto moves into Aquarius. So for those of you Capricorns who are into continuity and plan to keep doing what you've been doing for a long time, there's going to have to be a little bit of an equalizing, and you might like hire a community manager, or you might hire someone who works to bring people together rather than in any way like speaking down to people or seeing people as replaceable in your life. So that's only geared towards certain Capricorns. How this correlates to a situation where you're not maybe facing those experiences is in starting to rationalize the other people in your life, starting to empathize more, starting to really think a lot about why does this person have such a hard time with this? Like, this is not something I would have a hard time with. Nonetheless, they are. And that confusion or that difficulty has to be front and center for you guys in 2024 for you to take flight in a new way. Because you guys are already so high, okay, coming out of 2023. The thing is that for everybody, regardless of their current stature or energetic placement, 2023 is a lot lower than what 2024 is. So if you're already at a really high altitude, you have to be able to take it further. Like, you've been climbing mountains for a while now, it's time to do Mount Everest. I don't know, like taking it to the next degree. Yeah, as 2023 was kind of like a base camp, and like now we're about to go even higher. That is also where you guys shine, right? Like the mountain goat, those goats that like scale the vertical cliffs. So I just think that it's going to be a very empowering year for you guys. The only difficulty, the only problem area that I see in 2024 year cycle for Capricorn is losing relatability or separating a little bit in the way that I was talking about for Cancer and Scorpio, about the kind of like pulling back, separating from conflicts and kind of like observing. That's definitely happening for you, but it doesn't have the same energetic quality as it did for those other signs. For you guys, it feels more like so familiar at this point to be separate, or so familiar to be kind of like onlooking or kind of like above the conflict, that you may start venturing downwards, or you may start venturing. I'm seeing kind of like a up and down energy line. I'm seeing like, okay, one day I'm in this really kind of retreated, more secluded place, and the next day I'm like right in the middle of people in the more populated areas. So there's something about crowds of people, and maybe your tastes are changing about how you like to be in crowds or not in 2024. And yes, there's a fast tracking that's going to happen through that, as you might like come to a realization about what's happened to society, or what's happened to your ideas in comparison to the other parts of society. So that will reconcile, and that might cause you to also embrace certain fads or trends or movements in a different way as well. I do feel that for Capricorns, it's a really good time to pull out of certain things as well, and to withdraw, and to let other people also have a stake in certain things that you're doing. But there's a balance there, and you guys might spend a lot of this year working on that balance. But it's very untouchable too. Okay. So like the Dragon 2024 Capricorn energy, this is like, really the height of accomplishment and prestige for some of you. And I think that it's important this year to think about how you integrate the more collective relevance into that. So, anyway, let's move on to Aquarius. Okay. Aquarius in the year of 2024. Wow. Okay. So Pluto is going back into your sign. It's actually going to be January 20th that Pluto goes back into Aquarius. So we enter the calendar year with it still in Capricorn, and we leave it with it still in Capricorn. And it re-enters Capricorn on September 1st. So that's January 20th to September 1st, Pluto in your sign. That is the majority of the year. So you are going to get the new taste of what power means in 2024. And it won't be wholesome and total until 2025, until your season. So February 2025, that it's complete. But what an incredible year for people who are good at taking their time, biding their time, and being patient. So there's something about patience that you guys are having to really cultivate and learn about here, and the blessing of patience, the blessing of things also not being immediate. You know, if you think of goals or if you think of changes that you want to make in your own life, if you guys want to think of something in your own life and comment it below, like a change that I want to make as an Aquarius, that might be really helpful to the collective to understand how Pluto and Aquarius is working. But wouldn't it kind of desaturate it if it just came about tomorrow? So we kind of start to think about delayed gratification and the immediacy of goals, wants, and needs, and how time also works with us and proves the validity of how we feel at a certain point in time at a material level. So I'm feeling, for all the fixed signs, but especially Aquarius, I'm feeling like things have to be okay, that it's going to take quite a long time and almost like more invigorating because of that journey or because of that time that has to pass in order to reach a certain vista. Okay, I'm going to call it a vista. Yeah, it's like, again, kind of like climbing a mountain. You have to go through the weeds here and there. You can't really tell sometimes how high up you are until you reach that point and you can see the distance from where you previously were. So these waypoints, these vista points, are something that I think the current culture of immediate gratification has kind of like countered. It's like we want that vista moment always. We want that dopamine hit always. We want that apex always. And that's not really what the apex is. So Aquarius, Pluto being in your sign for quite a bit of this year, there's an envisioning of like, what would it be like to be in that altitude? What would it be like to reach that point? And there's even action behind it at this point in time, but it's not quite there. So I don't know, it's so compelling to think about how choices over a long period of time create a major, major outcome through repetition. And I definitely encourage you guys in 2024 to think about, okay, through multiple years of doing this, I come out with what? Definitely zooming out and looking at the long-term likelihood, the long-term potentials. Therefore, a lot of this year does feel kind of in that mental space as Pluto is just still on this cusp, and the truth of what the new Aquarius Pluto has to offer the world is only still like at a level of figment. It's not quite material yet. So things are in the process of manifestation. Things are in the birthing process. Things are like not quite out, like things are not cooked yet properly. So we don't want to force things here. So 2024 for you Aquarius, because the dragon archetype likes force. It's like a force to be reckoned with. It wants to like be like, I know what I want to do, and I'm just gonna show that and show my full hand and what may. But that conflicts with the current Pluto transits, which is much more reserved and wanting to build the resources, and also the two-mindedness needing to be resolved as well is causing more of the Plutonian archetype or people who are Plutonian to kind of like reserve here and kind of keep on keeping on. So it's up to you which energy you tap more into. But I think that being that so many things are at a transitional level right now, like it's very auspicious for Aquarius in the year of 2024 to actually have constants in some ways, to have consistency, to have things which aren't just changing, while everything else changes. So I'm feeling biding the time. I'm feeling patience. I'm feeling having trust in the future, faith. Okay, it's a big test of faith, which is a challenge anyway with the Aquarian Pluto cycle. But the Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces should help to offset that a little bit. Now, what else I'll say for you Aquarius? The The movements of Jupiter for you are quite good, all right? So the first half of the year with Jupiter and Taurus, a little bit more challenging as the square, but you are going to get trines from Jupiter in the latter half of the year, which should be a great time for completions, graduations, solving financial problems, and having good luck. But again, it's through patient, deliberate action. Really watch out for getting tied into, I need this result tomorrow. I need this outcome right now. Instead, try to implement sturdy techniques, sturdy routines that just can't go wrong. It's like that sort of justified divine logic feeling where it's like, I know that this choice, like 99.9% positivity, cannot bring about a bad result. It's like, I know that by drinking water, like 2 liters of water a day, I know that it's so unlikely that that's going to bring about a bad result in my life. I know that through putting this protein powder in the smoothie, that's so unlikely to bring a bad result in my life. Whereas some other things like drinking all of this alcohol, okay, that's probably not going to bring a good result into my life. Getting into unneeded debt for the sake of convenience, probably not going to bring a good result into my life. So like just kind of rebalancing things and really paying attention to the daily actions as you're in a time of patience and biding will be good for you guys. But it looks like a really empowering year for your mind being like better through knowing that your choices are yielding and bringing about a better future. So very interesting. Okay, moving on to Pisces. Last but not least, we have had quite the marathon today, Pisces, that we've run. A lot of endurance required for the speaker and the listeners. I know it's on both sides, but thank you guys so much for being here. Be sure to hit that like button below if you're a Pisces and you're excited for the Pisces journey, which is an ultimate one in 2024. Wow, we have Saturn and Neptune in your sign all year, and you are right in the forefront of a lot of people's lives. So all those stories that we were working through as Pisces people in the last 7 or 8 years, where it was more of a background experience, where we felt kind of like separated or on the sideline, well, that's changed. And you guys have a very central role in a lot of people's lives. This is good to get a grasp on in the beginning of the year and the beginning of 2024. Who's relying on me? Who have I committed to? Who expects something from me? Is this in black and white, like in writing? Is this like a sort of unspoken expectation, like really measuring out your commitments and making sure that you're living up to your commitments? Okay, Saturn's in your sign and it struggles in Pisces here anyway. When it comes to this, it's so easy to let time get away from us with Saturn and Pisces. It's so easy to just be enjoying listening to music, or to just be enjoying the lighter side of life, and all of a sudden a lot of time has passed and we have to think more about our commitments. So another likelihood for 2024 is rebalancing commitments. So anything that's also stopping you from enjoying art, from enjoying life, may be scaled down a little bit. I do see a lot of downscaling for you, Pisces. I see also that certain things which have worked for you before could now be preventing you from crossing the bridge you need to cross, in which case that might cause a downscaling so that you can actually get where you need to be. Also, I am feeling really strongly that significance is in high supply for you right now. So you know what you need to do. You know what feels better to you now. You know the path in a way, but you might still not be embarking. So there's an embarking, I feel, for you by the time that Jupiter goes into Gemini. I believe it's in June. It's in the summer months. So the Jupiter in Taurus could lead you to in the first part of the year, may cause that to be more about material and maybe setting a baseline for yourself, or setting a very kind of frugal base for yourself so that you have other options. Watch out for anything too lavish. Watch out for anything unnecessarily grandiose. It seems that by downscaling or resizing things, you can actually kind of have way more freedoms than most people. There's an interesting energy with the Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. Also, there's a likelihood this year of maybe studying religion, spirituality, even like history and civilization, or making discoveries also about certain emotional contexts of historical actions. Having both Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is like spiritual discoveries. It's kind of like the high priestess in the tarot. Also, it's kind of like the moon card and the world card. So there's a lot of high-level spiritual clicking that can happen for you, figuring things out, getting more adept also at reading the room, or more empathetic to other people. It feels like the psychic ability is really through the roof. But also because of that, it could lead you to be communicating less because you think that you know things without communicating. So that can like offset how psychic you are, because you could get over assumptive with that. So watch out for that as well. Try to lean more into communication, communicate with people. Try to not leave things unspoken unless you have to. So like, if you are curious about how somebody feels about something, try to communicate it directly. I feel like this foggy Saturn-Neptune situation has got to be offset with clear communication, and also like not being afraid of people's responses. I think that's oftentimes why people don't communicate, and people get passive aggressive. People get emotionally challenged because they're afraid of a certain reaction, or they're attached to needing a specific reaction. So there's a lot in that area that I feel Pisces is having to learn through here. It's nice to point things out. It's nice to be clear and to be known, but it's going to work in more complicated ways. Like, there are some things that have to be kept maybe under wraps for some of you. Like, you've discovered the perfect, fragrance or recipe, and you don't necessarily want to tell everyone because maybe someone's going to like take that idea and go wild with it. So there's like a guardedness that is necessary for some of you. Also, so 2024 is a lot about guarding and knowing what to guard, knowing what not to guard, things being hidden in plain sight, things also being too visible for some of you. Thinking about visibility, thinking about security is important this year. I do see a lot of you upping your security in the 2024 year cycle. And through that level of safety, it's actually bringing more mystery into your life in other areas. There's a mysterious, insightful energy, interesting series of words, mysterious, insightful energy of 2024, which might have some of you becoming more investigative or figuring things out. So like, I'm seeing like libraries being great for you guys, history books, not understanding how the world works, not understanding how certain things have come to be the way that they are, why borders are where they are, why economies work the way they work. Okay, like stuff like this, real stuff, okay, yet unreal, economies and borders, real yet unreal. I feel that for those of you Pisces who really want to like take things just like to a super masterful level, starting to study in areas like that could bring about a really incredible result in quite the long-term future. Again, stuff like this doesn't happen overnight. You don't learn this stuff overnight. Focused study takes years and years of practice. And regardless of what it is, whether it's something like that, whether it's music, whether it's any talent, talents are really emphasized for you guys as they were for Sagittarius. I think all the mutable signs this year have some type of new talent to begin to experience passion with, or a long-running talent to further develop. So it's a great year to focus on that instead of too many material things. And it's such a powerful year for figuring out certain like secrets, okay? Like solving certain mysteries in your life. Mystery illnesses you guys can get together in 2024. Dragon is also the archetype for 2024. Great for zooming out and seeing things for what they are, which means like solving problems, solving what used to be a mystery, no longer having certain problems, no longer having certain stories operating either because they've concluded, or certain cycles even with people can conclude this year. So I'm seeing a lot of Pisces people moving away from certain long-term structures as well, like marriages, locations they've lived forever. I'm seeing like a branching out, and I'm seeing kind of like a floating around as well, which is not always the right call, but there's an indication for that, like travel, moving around, discovering new areas. This can be happening in the mind as well through like discovering other things relating to histories or finding something compelling. There also seems to be a lot of seeking. There seems to be maybe something being pointed out or illuminated regarding like not being happy with what is or what currently happens. So there's like a compensation by needing to like push elsewhere. But I do think that you guys, as a Jupiter ruled sign before Neptune was discovered, there's a need to understand the world. There's a need to understand how things work. And it's not just compensatory, it's real. And I would really lean in to any like abilities, again, talents, abilities, musical ability, linguistic ability, more than I would lean into, material stuff. Okay. And that is the case for the entire duration of Saturn in Pisces. Again, I made a full video about that, which is linked below. And finally, Pisces, I'm seeing some stoicism. I'm seeing like Stoic philosophy maybe being an interesting idea for you guys, but basically anything that has like 1,000-year context to it, like old philosophies, old ways, and also just like learning about those or starting to integrate, in some cases, situations or studies like that into your life. And ultimately, you want to also ground in the familiar. If you've had any like separation from families or like your heritage, that could also be an area of a focus in 2024. Like, how can you honor that while also studying other things? So we just don't want to be too extreme on any area. And it feels like you do have to like work pretty methodically and schedule things, and anything of like escapism, okay, through addiction or through fantasies, okay? There's something there, I feel, in the Pisces archetype. And even if it's not in such obvious ways, you want to really keep an eye on anything that is triggering escapism, because it's important to know what that is. It's important to realize that that's happening, because it indicates that there's something that is threatening you, okay, at some level. And maybe deconstructing that and understanding that could be an interesting way. Also through having other opinions or through making more trusted relationships in your life, which could be a challenge, but I do feel some Pisces are gifted with a second set of eyes, okay, about certain things, which is really helping some Pisces here. There's a very romantic energy, I feel, in 2024 for you at both like a relationship level, but really at like a storytelling level, or like the stories that you're going through yourself. And because of that, it's important to offset it with realism, or to be adding something that is really discernible and measurable. So true balance, South Node in Libra, all right? Making sure that you have sort of multiple different angles to understand things from, multiple different focuses, purposes, and not getting too attached to any one thing. Like, very careful for grandiose, overarching purposes, grandiose things that are like, it's the only reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, or because this, in a way, it has like a tinge of fantasy. And can you start channeling this in a better way? Can you write like a fantasy novel? Can you alternatively make it more real? There's a challenge for that with Saturn and Neptune in your sign this year. But overall, really good progress for you guys in the realm of understanding in the mind, the way that the world works. There's a lot of progress there, and possibility also for like relationship alchemy as well. And I think that it's also more of a main story year for you compared to the last few years for Pisces. It's kind of started in 2022 when you had Jupiter in your sign, but it's increasing. Like, now that Saturn is there too, which is a little more substantial than Jupiter. So it's like an increase of this like really high level story. So that's riveting. That's exciting. A great time to keep a journal and remember what happened here. Anyway, that's going to conclude it. Be sure to hit the like button below if you enjoyed these 2024 year ahead forecasts. 2.5 hours of talking and understanding what the year ahead may have to offer. If you enjoyed it, be sure to comment below and subscribe to this YouTube channel with the bell notifications turned on. We will be having lots of content coming throughout the year ahead, which will be breaking down transits and other exciting topics such as healing the aura in 2024. So if you're interested in that content, again, make sure you're subscribed and check out the description box below. Thank you to Let's Get Checked for sponsoring this video. Go and check out a health packet from them. Great for the holiday, great to get our health clear to us as we enter into the calendar new year. Great for stocking stuffers and a great way to support this channel. This channel is also on Patreon, which will be linked below, and as well as relevant videos that I mentioned in the video. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great 2024 year ahead. Much love. Bye.